President Donald Trump and Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani may have signaled the future of New York City housing market. I want to show you a video, and I'm only going to show you snippets. And I've actually taken a lot of notes, so I'll just go through them, give you some key points that I found very apropos to maybe the future of New York City real estate.
And he beat him easily, and I congratulated him. And we talked about some things in very strong common, like housing and getting housing built, and food and prices, and the price of oil is coming way down. Anything I do is going to be good for New York. If I can get prices down, it's good for New York, and we've got them down, way down from last year. We have, as you know, I've been saying to a lot of people, Walmart said that Thanksgiving this year is exactly 25% less than last year, so that's good for New York, good for everybody. But I just want to congratulate. I think you're going to have hopefully a really great mayor. The better he does, the happier I am, I will say. There's no difference in party. There's no difference in anything. And we're going to be helping him to make everybody's dream come true, having a strong and very safe New York. And congratulations, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Please.
I appreciated the meeting with the president, and as he said, it was a productive meeting focused on a place of shared admiration and love, which is New York City, and the need to deliver affordability to New Yorkers, the 8.5 million people who call our city their home, who are struggling to afford life in the most expensive city in the United States of America. We spoke about rent, we spoke about groceries, we spoke about utilities, we spoke about the different ways in which people are being pushed out, and I appreciated the time with the president, I appreciated the conversation. I look forward to working together to deliver that affordability for New Yorkers.
Thank you very much. Any questions, please?
President Trump, Stephen Nelson from the New York Post. I had a question for you, and then also one for Mayor-elect.
Sure.
For you, you referred to Mr. Mamdani as a communist. Can you describe why you feel that way? And also, will you do anything to stop him from arresting Prime Minister Netanyahu if he visits New York?
Well, we didn't discuss your second part of the question. And on your first part, I mean, he's got views that are a little out there, but who knows? I mean, we're going to see what works, or he's going to change also. We all change. I changed a lot. From when I first came to office. It's now quite a while ago. It's quite a while. My first term was great. We had the greatest economy in the history of our country. We're doing even better now. We're doing much better now than we did even the first term. And I can tell you some of my views have changed. And we had discussions on some things. I'm not going to discuss what they were, but that I feel very confident that he can do a very good job. I think he is going to surprise some conservative people, actually. And some very liberal people he won't surprise them because they already like him.
And Mr. Mamdani, it sounds like you had a productive discussion, but just days ago you referred to President Trump as a despot who betrayed the country. You said you'd be his worst nightmare and accused him of having a fascist agenda. Are you planning to retract any of these remarks in order to improve the relationship?
I think both President Trump and I, we are very clear about our positions and our views, and what I really appreciate about the president is that the meeting that we had focused not on places of disagreement, which there are many, and also focused on the shared purpose that we have in serving New Yorkers. And frankly, that is something that could transform the lives of the 8.5 million people who are currently struggling under a cost of living crisis, with 1 in 4 living in poverty. And the meeting came back again and again to what it could look like to lift those New Yorkers out of struggle and start to deliver them a city that they could do more than just struggle to afford it, but actually start to live in it.
And I've been called much worse than a despot, so it's not that insulting.
First of all, Trump talked about getting housing built. That's one of the things that I caught out of this. The second thing that I caught out of this was that Trump talked about essentially how Mamdani could change, how Trump himself had changed some of his views, and Mamdani himself may be able to change some of his view. Now, I don't know what the meeting was about between the both of them. Most of us don't. Essentially, it was a private meeting between the both of them. But there was something obviously in that conversation that I guess signaled to Trump that Mamdani could probably do things differently from what he essentially talked about in the campaign trail. Another thing that Trump said that I thought caught my attention was when he said, I think he's going to surprise some conservatives, which to me might signal that there could be certain things on the horizon with regards to, perhaps not with regards to taxation, because Mamdani was pretty clear about what he wants to do with taxes. However, maybe as it relates to zoning, for example, loosening up zoning, enabling more building of perhaps, if not apartment buildings, maybe other, say, condominium units or even other types of single family housing. Repeatedly, Mamdani kept steering the question right back to affordability and cost of living, saying that the meeting was focused on whether New Yorkers could afford to live. Trump kind of echoed that same critical point. So expect the incoming administration to treat housing affordability not as a side issue, but the defining key performance indicator. And that usually means faster moves on rent regulations, tenant protections, and public sector building, regardless of pushback. Another thing is the homelessness statistics, which he used, talking about 100,000 100,000 plus school children that are homeless. Now, I haven't seen those statistics. I don't know what they look like. I don't know what they're based on, but he kind of used this to frame it as an emergency requiring government follow through. So the rhetoric is the political runaway for extraordinary housing intervention and expedited rezonings, large public housing expansion, tougher rules on landlords, and potentially emergency style funding packages. I'll be honest with you, that's where I thought things would go for the most part. But I don't think Trump would have taken kindly to that. The meeting might have been a little bit more palatable with regards to building more home ownership. And I think that's where things went.
Oh, sure. Oh, I would do that, absolutely. And if the mayor would like to be here for that meeting, because I know he feels very strongly. I think you feel very, very strongly about peace in the Middle East. I think
we desperately want it, and that's something that I shared with the president, that when I spoke to New Yorkers who had voted for the president last November on Hillside Avenue and Fordham Road, I asked them why. I heard again and again two major reasons. One was that they wanted an end to forever wars. They wanted an end to the taxpayer dollars we had funding violations of human rights, and they wanted to address the cost of living crisis. And I appreciated the chance to discuss both of those things.
he said a lot of my voters actually voted for him, and I'm okay with that. I'll do that. I'll sign it. Give it to me. I'll sign it in a minute. That's pretty good.
Mr. President,
Yeah, please.
you threatened to send federal troops to New York City. You both have differences when it comes to ICE agents
Right.
in New York City. Mr. Mamdani, you called ICE a rogue government entity. I wonder how you reconcile your differences on both of those issues.
Well, I think we're going to work them out, and I think that if we have known murderers and known drug dealers and some very bad people, we want to get them out. And the mayor wants to have peace. We discussed this at great length, actually, maybe more than anything else. He wants to have a safe New York. Ultimately, a safe New York is going to be a great New York. If it's not safe, no matter how well we do with pricing and with anything else, we can talk about anything you want. If you don't have safe streets, it's not going to be a success. So we're going to work together. We're going to make sure that if there are horrible people there, we want to get them out. I think he wants to get them out maybe more than I do. So we'll work together. We discussed it at great length. Yes, ma'am.
Again, you see there that Trump really didn't seem to indicate that he was drawn back on his approach to immigration, and that without any pushback from Mamdani. You saw Mamdani shaking his head in approval that he's still going to go forward with deporting illegal immigrants, especially the ones that need to be removed because are putting the public in danger. And I think both he and Mamdani would agree that a safe New York would be conducive to helping New York City move forward.
Mr. President, from BBC in a second, but first of all, to the mayor-elect, you're both from different parts of the political spectrum. You're both populists, though, and I just wondered to what extent with the president's campaign style, his techniques, his social media use inspired any part of your campaign.
Well, I actually told the president that, so much of the focus of our campaign has been on the cost of living crisis. And when we asked those New Yorkers who had voted for the president, when we saw an increase in his numbers in New York City, that came back to the same issue: cost of living, cost of living, cost of living. And they spoke about the cost of groceries, the cost of rent, the cost of Con Ed, the cost of childcare. And too often politicians are looking to lecture to New Yorkers what they should care about as opposed to listen. And when we spoke to those voters who voted for President Trump, we heard them speak about cost of living. We focused on that same cost of living, and that's where I am really looking forward to delivering for New Yorkers in partnership with the president on the affordability agenda.
And I think we have to work a little bit. We talked about Con Edison. We have to work a little bit on getting the prices because, we've gotten fuel prices way down, but it hasn't shown up in Con Edison. And we're going to have to talk to them. If we're sending them fuel at a much lower price than it was a year ago, which is true, we have to get Con Edison to start lowering the rates.
Absolutely.
Again, you see Trump and Mamdani in agreement with regards to helping to get utilities down. Trump saying that they should be getting cheaper energy with regards to fuel, and that they should be able to lower their rates down. Mamdani again indicating that he wants to also tackle universal child care, which will help a lot of families in the city. What I found also interesting in this video is that after Trump talks about inheriting the mess from Biden, Mamdani talks about the mess that he inherited from past Democrats.
I think it's something that you and Mr. Mamdani seem to agree on.
Right.
Democrats have run New York City for a long time, Mr. Mamdani. Do you see Democrat policy specifically as being a problem? And I'd like that to be a question that both of you could answer in New York City.
Look, I think that there are many things in our city where we have to own the responsibility of it, things that existed long before the president was the president. And those are also part of the message of our campaign, was to take on a broken politics of the past. And I ran against a number of candidates who represented different versions of that past. And what we found time and again is that working people were left behind in the politics of our city. And what we're looking to do is put those people right back at the heart of our politics so that we don't have a situation where we're in the wealthiest city in the history of the world, and yet 1 in 5 can't even afford $2.90 for a Metro card.
We had some interesting conversation, and some of his ideas really are the same ideas that I have. But a big thing on cost, the new word is affordability. Another word is just groceries. It's sort of an old-fashioned word, but it's very accurate. And they're coming down high. They were, we had, both of us, we had the highest inflation in the history of our country the last 4 years under the Biden administration, and we've got inflation down now to a normal number. It's going to go even a little bit lower than that.
In case you don't know what he's talking about, essentially what he's talking about is the inequity in the property tax structure. Right now, there are 4 tax classes for New York City property taxes. For the purpose of this video, we're only going to talk about just 2 of them, Class 1 and Class 2. Class 1 are 1 to 3 family homes, and then you got Class 2, which are condominiums, co-ops, and rentals, which include huge luxury condo and co-op buildings and most apartment stock as well. The problem is that Class 2 buildings aren't valued by sales price. They are essentially valued through the income approach. Because of that, it systematically understates the market value of luxury condo co-ops in Manhattan and prime brownstones in Brooklyn. So their tax bill looks relatively smaller to a modest Class 2 or lower income Class 2 buildings. The effect is that places with lots of luxury co-ops and condos, say in the upper east or west side, Tribeca, or parts of nice brownstones in Brooklyn, they can be undertaxed per dollar value as opposed to all the other properties. The second thing are the assessment caps and abatements. There is a cap on how fast a property is assessed, even if the value of that property skyrocketed in 1 year. What New York City does is that it caps how fast a property can be taxed. It's not a cap on the overall tax rate. It's a cap on how fast it's taxed relative to the movement of a property value. The third thing is a system that's regressive by value, and it maps geographically. That obviously translate into some of the racial disparities, because most housing, especially in the luxury apartments, luxury condo co-ops, are in one particular neighborhood versus another particular neighborhood. This type of tax system started back in 1978 when Mayor Ed Koch became mayor. And he was the one that created this system. David Dinkins, after him, saw how bad it was. There was a lot of complaints. Rudy Giuliani, when he became mayor, acknowledged that it was an issue, but never did anything about it as well. Mayor Bloomberg also acknowledged it was an issue, and he managed the rates, but did nothing about the inequity. Bill de Blasio launched a reform commission. Political speak means we're going to take a look at it, but we're really not going to do anything about it. With Eric Adams, it was the same thing. The challenge for Mamdani is going to be activating some sort of policy that's going to be able to iron out the inequity in the tax system. Mamdani is going to need the help of the city council. And so the question is going to be, how many members of the city council are going to be behind him on this?
I think what I've shared with the president is our desire to not only follow the laws of our own city, laws that protect New Yorkers, but also a desire for consistency in our politics across the board. And that's something that we've talked about and something that I know many New Yorkers want. We discussed ICE and New York City, and I spoke about how the laws that we have in New York City allow for New York City government to speak to the federal administration for about 170 serious crimes. The concerns that many New Yorkers have are around the enforcement of immigration laws on New Yorkers across the 5 boroughs, and most recently we're talking about a mother and her 2 children, how this has very little to do with what that is.
What we did is we discussed crime. More than ICE per se, we discussed crime. And he doesn't want to see crime, and I don't want to see crime. And I have very little doubt that we're not going to get along on that issue. He wants to, and he said some things that were very interesting as to housing construction, and he wants to see houses go up. He wants to see a lot of houses created, a lot of apartments built, etc. And we actually, people would be shocked, but I want to see the same thing.
There was a focus on crime with regards to their conversation. So there again, you hear the focus on crime. What I heard was a cooperation between New York City Police Department and ICE to ensure that the bad players are removed. Perhaps maybe a commitment from President Trump to trust the New York City Police Department to really tackle crime and to help ICE to remove those bad players. Another thing is a lot of housing going up. Are we talking about public housing? Are we talking about private housing? I would think there's going to be a mix of those, but I'm pretty sure that Trump would not have been happy if it was just pure public housing. I think a lot of talks about private housing going up was in that discussion. I really don't think that Trump would throw any money towards New York City if everything was going towards public housing.
Mr. President, I want to know one of the policies as well that Mayor-elect Mamdani talked a number of times about on the campaign was shifting the tax burden for property taxes from what he called minority communities to white-based communities and putting more taxes on white people. I also noticed that in your acceptance speech you didn't mention anything about America or Christians or white people in general, and so I didn't know if that was one of the policies that you guys had spoken about.
We focused on affordability. We focused on the cost of living crisis. What I will say is that I am very much interested in property tax reform, because what we see right now in New York City is a system that is so inequitable that it can't even stand up in court. And the president and I spoke about the importance of not only building more housing, but also making sure that regulation of housing is something that is manageable to actually get through and not the cause of yet another weight that we see.
To be clear, you're continuing this idea of race-based property taxes.
No, to be very clear,
That's what you said.
no, the use of the term was a description of neighborhoods, not a description of intent.
So you intend to tax the whiter neighborhoods more?
No, we intend to create a fair property tax system because we want a New York City that is not only fair and equitable, but also one that every New Yorker can afford.
There was the question asked with regards to Mamdani's claim of taxing people based on race, right? Which is very discriminatory, by the way. I believe it was Mary Cuomo who said, one campaigns in poetry, but governs in prose. And the poetry here, right, is Mamdani trying to get as many votes as he possibly can, saying things that unfortunately may signal the wrong thing, right? But in fact, it would be very discriminatory for him to tax people based on race. That's something that is not allowed under federal law. The problem is that when you're going to freeze rent, but reform taxes in order to make that equitable, that can be a problem long term. So that's why I don't see the rent freeze working for the city of New York long term. I think eventually you're going to have to phase that out at some point as more housing is going up and prices are stabilizing or maybe even going down. You don't want to put landlords in a predicament where now they're trying to pay the bills and also maintain these buildings. The very last thing I want to show here, and I think this will be the big takeaway.
One of whom was a pharmacist that spoke about how President Trump's father actually went to that pharmacy not too far from Jamaica Estates, that people were tired of seeing our tax dollars fund endless wars. And I also believe that we have to follow through on the international human rights, and I know that still today those are being violated, and that continues to be work that has to be done no matter where we're speaking of.
Do you view the mayor-elect as the true leader of the Democrat Party? And do you think Leader Schumer and Leader Jeffries, have to follow his lead?
Well, look, I hope they have great leaders. This is a man that right now I think is focused on New York City. I really think he has a chance to do a great job. We're going to help him, but I really think he has a chance to do a great job. But I'll let you answer that. You consider yourself the leader of the Democrats? I think it's more appropriate for him.
I consider myself the next mayor of New York City, and I keep my horizons firmly on New York City, and I appreciate the meeting with the president, which focused again on the 5 boroughs and whether New Yorkers could afford to live there.
By the way, being the mayor of New York City is a big deal.
Absolutely.
I always said, one of the things I would love to be someday is the mayor of New York City. Being the mayor of New York, and especially now, because I think you're at really a turning point, one way or the other. It could go great, or it can go in a different direction, and I think you really have a chance to make it great. I appreciate what you're saying.
Mr. President, you said you love New York.
I thought that exchange was very, very interesting. President Trump says something here very key, right? He said, being the mayor of New York City is a big deal. Of course, with this almost half-hour interview here with the press, the meeting overall was very positive. Mamdani's coming in with an affordability first mandate for sure, and he's already framing housing as an emergency. And Trump publicly is committing to helping him to succeed and to open the door to federal involvement in New York City housing. I would think it's fair to say that a good portion of the new housing will be private housing. The direction of the market is going to hinge on balance. Rent suppression alone will lead to supply going down. Prices and rents will remain sticky long term, and there will be more landlord distress, less of an effort to build more. But rent relief plus a massive new supply of especially private housing, along with federal capital, that could actually bend the rents down over time. The next 6 to 18 months are about policy implementation risk, and about the next 2 to 5 year outlook will depend on whether the affordability push is about expanding supply or constricting supply. So that's my take. What do you think? What do you think? Well, how do you think this meeting went? I hope you got something out of this. If you did, please hit the like button, share this video. I really appreciate your support, and subscribe to the channel. For those of you out there, happy Thanksgiving. Hope you enjoy the holidays, and I'll see you in the next video.